Steve's not here, we can ask.
Good evening. We'll call this meeting of the Johnson City Board of Commissioners for September 21st to order. Giving the invocation tonight will be Dale Cunningham, pastor of Boones Creek Bible Church. If you'd stand for the invocation, then remain standing for the pledge, please.
Before we pray, let me say to you, commissioners, I wanted to say a thank you for what you're doing for our city, especially in one area. Ralph, thank you for the Tweetsie Trail. Enjoy running that trail, all you've done to do all that and the things that are happening in our city. And I just want to tell you thank you. I'm grateful for you, and I pray for you every Thursday morning. And so let's go to prayer. Father, we thank you tonight for the Lord Jesus Christ, who is our entrance into the throne room of glory. And tonight, Lord, as these folks have gathered to be a part of what you've created called government, Lord, I pray that tonight they will know of the wisdom that comes only from you. And that tonight, that the God of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of glory, would give them the spirit of wisdom and revelation and the knowledge of who Christ is, and the absolute truth of your word would guide them, and the eyes of their understanding would be enlightened. And we're grateful also that we can come to you tonight in the midst of all the suffering that's going on in this world right now. I realize there's a lot of hurting people tonight. And we are grateful that we can come to thee, the God of all comfort. And I don't understand all your ways. I know you're sovereign. You're in control. You hold everything in your hand. But I pray tonight that more than anything, that the suffering of this world will cause the people of this world and of our nation to run to Jesus Christ, who endured the greatest suffering of all to deliver us from sin, death, and hell. I'm grateful to know that this isn't all of life. There's a better day coming through the crosswork of Jesus Christ and the resurrection of out of the tomb. So tonight we are grateful also for all of these servants that are here in front of me, as well as these who serve us in the police department, fire department, EMTs. Protect them. And I pray that tonight your will be done in this very room, because you're here, you're everywhere, and you're God and God alone. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Peterson, the first item.
At your seats this evening is an application for a beer license from Allmart LLC. We would ask that you add that to your agenda for consideration, please.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Broecklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tumita?
Yes.
This takes you to consideration of the minutes from your meeting held September the 7th.
Do we have any corrections or amendments?
Move approval of the minutes.
Okay, got a motion. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Broecklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tumita?
Yes.
At this time, we would like to do proclamations and resolutions, the first being a proclamation recognizing PTA membership enrollment emphasis month.
Well, welcome. I'd like to read this proclamation. Whereas the objective of the Parent-Teacher Association is to promote the welfare of children and youth in the home, school, community, and place of worship, and whereas the PTA's goals are to raise the standards of home life, to secure adequate laws for the care and protection of children and youth, and to bring into closer relationship the school, or the home and the school, and whereas parents and teachers may work together to ensure quality education and to develop between educators and the general public an awareness of the need for citizen involvement to secure the highest advantages in every area of education for all children, and whereas the association encourages all citizens, regardless of whether or not they have children, to enroll in the PTA so that they may have the opportunity to speak on behalf of the children in our community. Now, therefore, I, David Tomita, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim September 2017 PTA Membership Enrollment Emphasis Month. P-MEME for short, in Johnson City, and urge citizens to join the Parent-Teacher Association and get involved in meeting the educational, social, and economical needs of each child so they may become citizens with quality education, positive self-esteem, and good morals. And here you are.
Thank you.
And would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, let me grab my thing. I do have a speech too. My name is Paula Treese, and I'm the Johnson City Council of PTA's president. And each of you were given a sheet here and an information sheet, and I'm going to just read that to you for things. A lot of times when I come here, I just ask you to join, but I don't tell you all the wonderful things PTA does. So I'm going to turn this way, and y'all can just have to hear it.
We can see you on TV.
Okay. The Johnson City Council of PTAs is comprised of 11 local unit PTAs in our council. Last year, our 12 PTAs donated over $200,000 to our schools. We bought things like a 70-inch ViewSonic digital board, technology, octoball pits, 18 swings, 19 Bluetooth megaphones, a new gym sound system, 9 square courts, laptops, laptop carts, projectors, wall mounts, mulch and flowers for inside and outside of schools, AR, Camp Explore, field trips to 4-H camp, 4th grade field trips, equipment for first Lego leagues, music programs and instruments, PA systems, 250 novels for the 9th grade, a classroom set of books in middle school, headphones, tablets and cases, T-shirts for students and staff, Barter Players Theaters performances at 2 schools, playground equipment, lunch emergency funds, senior scholarships, teacher scholarships, leadership programs, bridge programs, clothes closets, cultural arts awards, programmable fitness watches, and a whole lot of other things, including teacher and staff lunches on a regular basis. Aren't you glad you didn't have to read that? Service projects PTAs spearheaded were holiday parties, literacy weeks, Thanksgiving baskets, Christmas tree gifts for the needy families, student needs. Students were given money to buy books at book fair, the bridge program, clothes closets, Leadership 912, Socktober, where one school gotten over 900 pairs of socks donated to give to the needy, a Teddy's Fund donation drive, which is funds for lunch money for students in need, Green and Clean, Nicewanger toy drive and money collection, walkathons, financial relief for wildfire victims, care packages to nursing homes, winter clothing drives, and a sports equipment donation drive. Special events we sponsored were a masquerade ball, grandparent days luncheons, art nights, Stop, Dop, and Read, Fiesta Night, fall festivals, Explorer Walkathon, STEM Day, Spirit Day, mock elections, family ball nights, family game nights, family math nights, family reading nights, family bingo nights, cultural arts nights, spring fling, Halloween parades, Honors Day, Town Criers Awards, ETSU grayscale performances, carnival auction, field day, walkathons, middle school dances, barter theater, and a look into our schools.
Whoa, I'm tired.
I am too.
Thousands of hours citywide were donated to our schools through our PTA volunteers. Southside PTA was a national PTA winner in the Thank a Teacher contest. Mountain View PTA won 20 Kindles in the National PTA's Family Reading Experience. Science Hill High School PTSA was recognized by the Tennessee PTA as the outstanding local unit high school. Mr. Jacobs was recognized as the Tennessee PTA's outstanding principal, and Dr. Bales was recognized as the Tennessee PTA's outstanding superintendent. Many of our PTAs received awards of excellence and merit at the Tennessee PTA convention, and we also had 33 students received awards of merit or excellence at the Tennessee PTA Awards for Citizenship Essay, Safety Poster, and Reflections Contest. And if you go to the Tennessee PTA Facebook page right now, they're showing all of the ones who won excellence and awards with what schools they're from. So several of our kids are there. All in all, I think we had a pretty good year. Now what you've been expecting, I'm asking each of you to be our PTA pals. By becoming a partner assisting our local schools, you become a member of each of our local unit PTAs. I'm also challenging anyone else who's in the audience to join our PTA pals, including including Chief Staples, and if Chief Soroy's here, but I haven't seen him.
He's out in the hall.
He's out in the back. I'll get him as I go out there. He knew I was going to ask it. As we all have a stake in our community schools. We look forward to another great school year, and we thank you all for letting us partner with you to expect the best in our Johnson City schools. Thank you, and I'm done.
Thank you. Would you mind reviewing what you did last year? Please review what you did last, no. I'm kidding.
Well, a lot of times you just don't tell me.
All right, at this time, if I could ask Chief Stables and the firefighters to come forward for some recognition for a very significant award. We think of our firefighters as firefighters, but they serve many roles for us, and not the least of which is to provide emergency medical services.
Good evening, everyone. One of the greatest parts of being the fire chief is to be able to recognize folks for delivering direct service to you all. We have an excellent system here in Johnson City where Washington County EMS and Johnson City Fire Rescue provide service as a two-tier system. And for 6 months of time of saves, all of these folks up here had a direct impact in someone's life where they were able to be released from a facility and go back home to their families after experiencing a life-threatening event. So I want to go ahead and recognize each and every one of them. Some of them were unable to attend the award ceremony that was held at Washington County EMS, but I want to recognize all of them, and there's a couple that weren't able to make it tonight, but I want to make sure that they're recognized in name as well. So Andrew Kendrick, Andy Jones, Thomas Norris, Matt Carr, Ted Lennar, Brandon Stevens, Kurt Bennett, Dan Chismark, Chris Ward, Nathan Ward, Brian Barnett, Jared Whitehead, and the two that aren't present are Mike Britt and Wayne Buckles. These gentlemen ride on apparatus every day that they're at work to deliver direct service and help people. And the honor that I have is recognizing the fact that they make a difference. So if y'all can put your hands together for these folks and let them know how well they're appreciated by you all, I appreciate that.
Wait, come back.
They're all shy.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you.
Good job. Thank you. At this time, I would like to ask Joy Baker if she would come forward, please. We would like to take this opportunity to recognize Joy Baker, who is our risk manager, for the receipt of an award that she got from the Tennessee Municipal League Risk Management Pool. It was a statewide recognition for her efforts and all that she has done to improve the profession of risk management, as well as what she has done for our community. A brief review of some of Joy's accomplishments. She was on the committee that put our first wellness committee together back in the very early 90s. So the whole idea of a wellness program is far-reaching. Joy was very instrumental from that. She's also served regularly on our health insurance committee, making recommendations and helping us to continually improve that program. Not to mention, of course, that she oversees all of our property insurance, our risk insurance, our liability insurance. She takes claims. She works with our insurers and with the pool to ensure that we are minimizing our risk exposure and doing all that we can to promote employee safety. Through Joy's guidance and direction over the last few years, we have added a number of positions in that particular department to do training and to also go out and visit work sites. I kind of refer to that group as the in-house TOSHA inspectors. They show up unannounced and advise our workers how to work safely, to work more productively, to make sure that the general public stays safe while they're digging their ditch or whatever it is that they're doing. And the risk pool has worked with Joy, I guess, for 35 years now, 35 plus years. And they've started giving these awards. And Joy was one of the first recipients to be recognized for her leadership and all that she has done to promote risk management throughout the state and specifically with us. And while she's done all those things I listed and 100 more, I think one of the most significant things that you've accomplished is the employees now use you as a resource rather than being afraid of, oh, here comes risk management, watch out. It's kind of like the relationship we have with our auditors and comptrollers. You're always leery when those folks call or come by, but Joy and her staff have done a tremendous job of building that relationship to where different work groups and department heads actually seek advice from her on how to do things and how to do them correctly before they proceed. And I think that speaks volumes for you and your character and for all the wonderful things that you've done for our organization. So I wanted to take this opportunity to recognize you for your service and for your award. And congratulations. Thank you very much, JB.
Well, I couldn't do any of this alone, and I haven't. I have a great staff in risk management who supports and assists me, Missy and Debbie and Kim, and they pour their heart and soul into serving our customers each and every day. But really, the success of the program depends on every single city employee and school employee, because we work with the schools as well, and it's through their participation and support and cooperation that our program is successful. And of course, management support and the commission support is very, very important, because we couldn't do any of this without you all. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Joy.
Thank you. Appreciate you. And now I would like to ask the Industrial Development Board to come forward and make their annual report.
Okay. And on behalf of the IDB, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present our annual report. I believe you all have a copy of it in your packets. So the IDB has completed 4 authorized pilots. The NN, which started in 2014, and that was a pilot by resolution. Their first annual report was due in January of 2017. They've created 54 new jobs. The second one I wanted to mention is Dentsply. That agreement was done through the county, but I thought it would be good to note it on here since it's located within the city limits. The next one is the Silverdale Partnership. That began in 2016. They had a baseline of 101 jobs. Their report they filed with us in June listed 89 new jobs, which is about 30 over what they projected for the year. The next one was Mullican Flooring. They are slated to create 200 new jobs by March of 2022, and their first report will be due in March of next year. And then we have one pending, and that's LPI, and that is tentatively scheduled to close in October. So as part of our agreement, our MOU with the city, We're required to give this report annually, and we would also like to request the commission to authorize the IDB to continue for another year with the capital investment program.
Very good. Any questions?
Just, Ms. Summers, on the Mullican flooring, are they in their new building now?
They are.
Okay, so they're functional, or are they still building out, or what?
They are. They are still working through some issues they had with the building, but they will be doing warehousing in the building. But yes, they've purchased it, obviously, and closed on it, and are in the process of getting it up and running. They have added 2 new product lines
Okay.
at the manufacturing facility.
So while there are no report numbers on new employment, we know that
Yeah, they
they've
are
added
creating new
out there.
jobs, yes.
Okay.
I move that we continue for an additional 12 months, the opportunity for the Johnson City Industrial Development Board to continue to impact economic development in our area in the manner that's been previously prescribed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tumita?
Yes.
We'd just like to thank the IDB and Alicia, your organization, for all the work that you've been doing in this community on behalf of the community.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
And keep throwing that net out there.
And we've got Bobby Job from the IDB and
See you
Jim
back there.
Thornton here as well this evening.
Thank y'all so much.
And we appreciate all you've done now. Go get busy.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do some more.
Mr. Peterson?
Would you like to go ahead and deal with license before you hear my report? That way we can accommodate those who are here.
That'd be great. We won't bore the licensees to death.
Okay, the first license for consideration is an application for the American Cancer Society to receive a temporary occasion license for September the 22nd. The appropriate reviews have been made, finding no disqualifying factors. The recommendation is for approval.
Great. Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Holly Booker, 1122 Huffine Road, Johnson City, Tennessee.
Very good. Have you read the rules and regulations regarding the sale of alcohol in the
Several
city of
times.
Johnson City?
Got it. Good to go.
How many exactly? No. Do you agree to abide by those rules?
Yes.
Okay, do you have any questions for us?
No.
Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Move approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second? Any discussion? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tumita?
Yes. And if you'd like to describe to the tens of people watching right now what your event is and when it is.
This Friday, Founders After 5 always has music. The American Cancer Society will be selling beer as a fundraiser for our October 22nd Making Strides Against Breast Cancer. All the funds raised will go to that. Those funds do go to find better treatments and a cure for cancer, also to sustain local and global programs that give free wigs, free rides, and free housing and support for people going through treatment. So all your support is very much appreciated. Come out and have a good night.
And it's Founders After 5, but it doesn't start promptly at 5, is that correct? More
It
like
doesn't. I think it's just at
6, I
6.
think.
Six-ish?
They changed
Yeah,
it.
I think it's like 6 to 8.
Founders
So it's
After
really
6.
Founders 6 to 8.
Founders
Correct.
yes.
It's not as marketable.
Yeah, it only took me 3 or 4 times showing up at 5 and going, where is everybody? So, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you,
luck.
guys.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Your next beer license application is for All Mart LLC, located at 3658 West Market Street. This is a change of name, and there are still a couple of reports to be received from the inspectors. We're recommending this approval contingent upon the satisfactory reports from those remaining 2 inspections. So we would recommend your approval contingent upon those inspections being successful.
Very good. Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Kruti Brambert, Allmart, 3658 West Market Street, Johnson City.
read the rules and regulations regarding the
Yes.
sale of beer in the city of Johnson City.
We just had a license in February, we went through this, and it's just a change of name. The ownership is same, everything is same, so, I mean, I don't think we need to.
And do you agree to abide by those rules?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any questions for us?
No.
And you understand this is contingent on completion of the items that are not complete as of this report? Okay. All right.
Move approval.
All right.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tomita?
Yes. Good luck.
Next item of business is consideration of a certificate of compliance for Northside Package Store doing business as Northside Wine and Spirits located at 2311 Browns Mill Road. No disqualifying factors were found, and we would recommend your approval.
All right. We had discussed in our last agenda meeting the necessity for making the owners come down here on something that we're really just, we're not approving anything, we're just stating certain things are so. So, Mr. Nichols, congratulations. You're the last one who will be required to come down here. And sorry we didn't catch you in time. We didn't find out, get the ruling on that till the agenda had gone out. So.
We would have still made him come.
We would have
down,
made him come, correct. Yeah. So, sorry to drag you down here, but
Move approval.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Jennings, you call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tomita?
Yes.
Your next item for consideration is a certificate of compliance for Libations LLC doing business as Plaza Package Store located at 4471 North Road. The recommendation is for approval.
I'm here.
Would you state your name, state your name and address and sing your company song, please?
Joe Nichols, 4471 North Front Street.
All right. And since you really don't need to be here, I don't even need to ask any questions. So do we have a
Move
motion?
Move approval. Second, whichever.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Jennings, call the roll.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tomita?
Yes. And if you'd like to take a second and tell us about your business.
Gray, the store in Gray will be open in a couple weeks, and we're excited to be a part of the Gray community. Thank you.
I was by there the other day, so there are going to be other businesses in that strip you're building, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. So we have 4,500 square feet available for lease.
Okay.
And we're talking to a couple different people. We're excited about that as well.
So is that 2 or 3 possible businesses, new ones out there?
1,500 square feet
Uh-huh.
or 3,000 square feet.
Okay.
But it's been spec'd out to be able to combine as well.
You're bringing some new business to
We hope.
town. Good.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes, sir. That takes us to the manager's report, and I'm glad to report to you that on October the 12th, we have the 4 finalists selected for presentations concerning the branding and the logo. I think those appointments are on your calendar. The IT work order software, there's no update on that since last month. That data conversion continues to be in progress. The code software, we have encountered several data conversion and software glitches over the last 4 or 5 weeks. We're continuing to work with the vendor and our customer base to work through those and to get all of those ironed out. That has caused some delays through the process to some of our customers. We're hopeful that those are to a minimum now and that we're about over that. We have run into some data conversions and the normal software conversion hiccups along the way, and we apologize for that, but we do have the vendor's attention, and they work with us on a daily basis making corrections to that software. As you're aware, we're working on our ADA transition plan. We have the 3 finalists that responded to our RFP that are coming in on Monday for interviews. We will select a firm and have a contract for your consideration at your October 12th meeting so that we can be on the timeline that TDOT has set for compliance with an ADA transition plan.
What was the range that it's going to cost to meet all the requirements of that transition,
For the transition plan or for the implementation plan?
for the implementation.
We have yet to identify all of our deficiencies. That's what the transition plan will do. It isn't something that will have to all be done at once. There will be deficiencies that we can correct by changing the point of service delivery. State and local governments are afforded under Title II to, if you have a meeting in a room that's inaccessible, you can move it to a different room that is accessible, for example, those types of things. This transition plan identifies your compliance and your deficiencies, and you identify them all, and then you put together a plan or a corrective action plan, which would be your implementation.
But if you have a trash container that's affixed to the middle of a sidewalk, for example, that has to be moved, changed out.
If there
These are
isn't
the kind of
a,
things we're talking.
yes, yes, ma'am. Curb cuts will be a big one. For example, in the early 90s, we spent $500,000 putting in curb ramps at intersections. And at that time, there was not a requirement for the truncated cones that you see now. Those are now required. And I'm sure that there are intersections that we were compliant with in the 90s that we're probably out of compliance with now, for example, that we're going to have to go back and do some retrofits. We'll look at transportation first. In discussions with TDOT last week, that was one of the things we talked a lot about, was their requirement for these transition plans. The Department of Justice has been charged with enforcement of the ADA until recently, and DOJ turned that over to the Federal Highway Administration, who has now passed it down to the state DOTs. So the first area of focus is going to be transportation, traffic signals, pedestrian safety.
Does it include the schools?
The ADA will include everything we own. Yes, it is very broad. Total implementation could be extremely expensive. Thankfully, it's not one of those things that we're going to have to do it all at once, and we will prioritize the needs and address them as the commission sees fit. The RFP for management services of Freedom Hall will go out early next week, if not tomorrow. We still are awaiting a response from the State Attorney General on our question that was posed to him concerning alcohol sales at that particular facility. The lighting project at Cardinal Park should get underway pretty quick. They were, once the baseball season was over, they were going to order the lights, and the timeline for that is to have that done by the end of the calendar year. That's still on schedule. We have put together, I believe it's 10 employee work teams that are reviewing and addressing the issues that surfaced in the employee survey. As you're aware, we had the leadership team go through a similar process and identify opportunities for improvement, and they've put together a draft work plan or an implementation plan, and we felt it was very important to let the frontline employees have the same opportunity, and we asked for volunteers, and I think we had about 100 volunteers that wanted to participate in the process. Steve met with them like 2 weeks ago, and I believe they had another meeting yesterday or today, to follow up, and we feel like that'll probably take a total of 3 or 4 meetings for them to bring all that together with a suggested work plan. At that point, we'll sit down and compare and contrast the two bodies of work and put together a plan that will address issues that the employees have identified where we could make improvements in terms of employee relations and morale with the workforce. The sports science facilities project, There are multiple investors, potential investors that will be coming to visit Johnson City in December. In my latest conversations with the folks at ETSU, there's potentially 4 or 5 different groups that would be represented in December. And I think there's the potential for another regional investor that has some interest in the project that may visit next month to come up and see the site and learn more about what the stones do. And that project continues to move forward and have pretty good traction. The Aerospace Park project, of course, is before you this evening on your agenda. Let's see, last week I had the opportunity to meet with our lobby group and representatives of 5 other cities. And our lobbyist had set up meetings with TDOT and the comptroller and the lieutenant governor. And we had the opportunity to talk to them about the upcoming session and what to expect. We had a very productive conversation with TDOT about the ADA transition plan and the implementation of the Improve Act and how those projects would progress. The Boones Creek exit is still in progress. They're hoping to move that through the right-of-way phase over the next 12, 15 months, get that completed. So that the project at University Parkway, of course, is under construction. There are several bridge projects throughout the county that they will be implementing over the next few years. What they're trying to do is to put a real focus on 3 years' worth of projects and then identify which ones are really ready to move and the ones that maybe are hung up in right-of-way or environmentals or whatever. Try to identify projects that they can move in and try to spend that money as quickly as they can. They've got a backlog of federal funding that has been distributed across the state for local projects, and they're really encouraging all the local MPOs to get that money spent down. If it gets spent down, it makes us eligible for the potential of additional federal money. So TDOT is really focused on trying to get projects moving and get the projects moving that will move the quickest in order to get that money spent and get the projects done. Very productive meeting. Discussions with the comptroller's office. They have finalized the training required for water utility boards, which you all serve as the Johnson City Water System Utility Board. There's going to be 12 hours of training required and then some CEUs along the way. It's going to be pretty easy for you all to get the training required. It's everything from certified financial officer training that Janet's familiar with. It's MTAS is putting together, I think, a 2-day block of training that will provide the training required. It's everything from how to conduct a meeting, it's ethics training, it's budget training, it's capital budgeting. They've been pretty general in the training that they're going to approve. Not to put words in anybody's mouth, but it appears that larger municipal water and wastewater systems, they feel like probably have the level of training just as a result of the size of the business they deal with. But there are a number of UDs and smaller municipal systems that this will probably be very beneficial for. So I think that's going to be a pretty easy process. In fact, Janet, I asked the question, we talked about the CMFO certification the comptrollers got for financial officers. I think they would even sign off if you put together a training program and presented the syllabus to them. So I think we can do this pretty easy and accomplish what the comptroller's office is wanting to do. So that was good news. That was something that we've been a little anxious about, what level of training they would require. Good meetings. The lieutenant governor is excited about getting the next session started. The main topic was with all of the potential changes in the House and in the Senate, and different people running for governor, that this could be a somewhat of an unusual session with the number of people potentially changing seats, and look for it to be an efficiently run and fairly quick session this year. So, and then as far as the development of additional athletic fields, there is still interest by the property owner adjacent to Wingdeer Park. We're just awaiting direction from this body as to whether we want to get into serious negotiations with that person or let it go and look for another piece of property. So we just wait a little direction on that. The golf recommendation for Buffalo Valley is still on track to be to you 1st of December as you instructed, so that's moving forward. The Freedom Hall renovations, the floors are all done. The one of the concession stands is done. It turned out really nice. I think everybody's really going to be pleased with those improvements in the building. I would imagine that it's probably going to be another month or so before they're completely out of there. The pool is completed with the exception of the new filtration system, and the UV system is in the process of being finished up design, and we'll get that out to bid real soon, and that should finish that up. And I would be glad to take any direction or answer any additional questions you may have.
I have a question. Can you clarify, and perhaps I've misunderstood, as it related to the parcel at Wingdeer Park, it was my understanding that we had engaged a third party to help facilitate those negotiations, and that was the last comment the commission had made. But to
Yes.
hear you report, it sounded more like we weren't engaged in any kind of negotiation, waiting a decision from this board, and I'm just unclear which it is.
We have a representative representing us in those negotiations. The price has moved way up, and now it's coming back down. We feel like we can make a firm offer on the property if you so instruct us to do so. And we would be glad to bring you a sales agreement for your approval at the next meeting if you would like for us to do that.
Well, I guess I just want to be clear, because it sounded like nothing was happening pending further comment from the commission. So if we need the commission to do something, we need to put that on our agenda. And if that's not what's happening, and there are still efforts, and that's still an active conversation, I don't want to meddle in an active conversation, but I would like to be assured that it is in fact an active conversation.
It is an active conversation, and it has gone up, and now it's coming back towards reasonableness.
I would certainly like to have some conversation around what is reasonable, and I'd like to know where we're at with this at this point, not necessarily right now, but at some point not too far down the road. Accompanying that has to be a recommendation from management about how we fund it, because it doesn't do any good to enter into a contract if we haven't identified how we're going to proceed with funding.
Correct.
I think
Yes.
one of the things that, as we were kind of working with this previously too, then the thing with the county came up, and, you know, committee was appointed for that to see, well, maybe that's the direction to go. So, or what, you know, I don't think we can stop our endeavors whatsoever, and I think there may be some other options as well. So I'd like to see us go back to a workshop type discussion about
Well, I
sports.
think it would be helpful along those same lines, Vice Mayor, to have the Parks and Rec Board sit with us and have these discussions, because they certainly have two pieces of property that they think are important.
Yep.
One for rectangular fields and the other for diamonds. And it's not one piece of property, it's two pieces of property. So trying to understand how they intend to fit everything together and what their preferences are. I think that's a conversation that, having sat in on most of the Parks and Rec Board meetings over the last year or so, I'm familiar with what their desires are, and it'd be nice for the commission to sit, not only hear what is probably a reiteration of what the desires are, but the rationale behind it.
So what's happening on the county side? I mean, is that,
We have a meeting coming up, the joint committee.
In
It's
October.
been set up and it's coming up in
not
October.
until October?
We'll know a little bit more about what plans
There's only a
we
week of
all have
September left.
sometime,
Yeah.
hopefully in the near future.
Well, could we get like a Monday workshop to get this back on our radar screen? And there may be some other options too that have been in the discussion pipeline as well.
I mean, I personally am not clear on any other options that have been presented by the Parks and Rec Board. I certainly have no interest in purchasing property unless it was part of a larger plan. I just don't want to run around and grab property. I've not been a big fan of that one anyway, but I can be convinced if the numbers work. But we don't have an overall plan for what we're doing. And to
Be nice
your
have an
point,
overall
we don't have we do not have a funding source for whatever amount. We do not have a funding source.
Well, there
identified.
is a plan for Wing Park and its extension. I mean, we've seen the renderings and how that will become kind of the center of excellence for softball if there's the addition
sure.
of that parcel.
Is that what we, again, we don't know what our budget is. Will our budget be spent on a center of excellence for softball, and we have no room for, again, we don't have an overall plan, and I haven't heard any options from the Parks and Rec Board or preferences.
I think our last thing was, that at Wing Park, and then looking actually for another parcel for soccer. And we've talked about 2 or 3 different potential sites for that. But there's just
Well, I
not
think
been any
that's a-
kind of closure on.
That's a part of a bigger conversation. I was reacting to Mr. Peterson's report that something was sort of at a point where it needed comment from us. If it needs comment from us, it needs to be an agenda item on our meeting agenda, so we get you that comment. I'm afraid too often we leave these questions out there sort of half-addressed, and things take longer than they should, or get delayed, or get lost in the shuffle. And so perhaps you could, as you start writing your next manager's report, go ahead and park this on the top of that report as something you still need an answer for. Because I want, an action item, because I don't want to leave you wondering where we're at. Now, with that said, I think there's been a pretty clear indication that we don't want to get into something we're ill-prepared for or haven't fully considered. And so perhaps a workshop or some sort of strategy session to think through what we think we want to do and whether we would be well-served to do it is probably going to run in parallel to that.
I just sent Beth an email to set up a workshop.
Can we do that at the agenda review next time, or is that going to be too long a discussion for that same time?
I think one of the needed pieces of information is is there any probability on this county thing? So, I mean, if there's any kind of credit that could take place with that, I mean, that has a lot to do with how we go forward as a city. So, do we get the cart before the horse, or do we wait and kind of at least go through that one meeting, and see if there's any probability?
I think Commissioner Fowler can probably give us a good feel as to whether we need to charge ahead or wait for something more concrete out of that group.
And do they just want soccer fields there, so then we
Sure.
start focusing more on
Yeah.
softball somewhere else?
But then
So-
let's get back to our game plan, though, and at least
Be on top of us no matter.
try to have
what-
some clarity
they're
about
doing.
what direction we want. First of all, philosophically, do we feel like sports tournaments is a legitimate business kind of venture for us to get into, and is it economically positive for the city? And once we do that, then, the facilities have to support that.
So if we give them time to meet in October, perhaps we set something up the first week in November.
Have some idea by then.
I think speaking with Chairman Matherly, I think the objective is to try to meet several times quickly.
Yeah.
So you may have,
Because
2
they're-
under your belt by the
They're
time
already
we go.
moving dirt and things there.
Oh,
They
yeah.
kinda need to know something
Yep.
at some point.
Well, something that we've been asking for, really for some time, even before the trip to South Carolina, is not only an idea of how many fields you need for each type of endeavor, not only how much it's going to cost for the parcels of property that are being proposed, looking at what the Parks and Rec Board thinks fits best, but also what the cost of development of those sites and maintaining those sites are. And these are all numbers that we need. I would hope that in 6 weeks, if that's when we intend to have this discussion, I would hope that we would have a much firmer grasp of what those numbers are than I currently have. Mr. Ellis, at the last Parks and Rec meeting, was asked by me to try to begin to develop those numbers so we have those numbers to work with and so that we understand what the magnitude of our investment ultimately is going to be. So, Mr. Peterson, if you could ensure that that those types of numbers are put together for the commission, it's going to make the decision about whether to pursue anything much easier for us.
We will get as specific as possible. We're going to have to realize it's going to vary from parcel to
I'm
parcel.
aware of that, but we don't
Yes.
even have a baseline. I think you can establish a baseline and then contingencies for
Yes.
perhaps running into rock or having to haul in fill and those sort of things. But we've got to have at least what the best case scenario is, because even that may very well preclude the concept of sports tourism development. It may be more along the lines of developing fields for community use, which has a huge amount of benefit in my estimation, even if it's not the primary purpose. And we would get some spin-off of revenue from it, even if it's not enough to take care of the general fund commitment.
And Monday, October 16th is our first meeting for that joint commission, so
October 16th.
October 16th.
And to that end, I think the last commission, as an objective for you, Mr. Peterson, identified developing some funding scenarios for that. And I recognize we have debt roll-off in 20 or 19. And so there's obviously capacity in future years, but there's not capacity now. And I think to the extent possible, the firmer we can get those numbers now, even if we don't have an identified way to pay for it, we at least have, it's much easier to have a meaningful conversation when you know precisely what you're talking about, as opposed to just dismissing the variables because we don't see a capacity to do it now. And so I guess I would echo the desire to at least, are we talking about 5, 10, 20, 30 million? The South Carolina trip revealed to me that the sky is the limit on what you can potentially spend, and I don't think that's our budget. Don't worry. Don't worry, I don't think that's our budget. Exactly.
If I could comment, I mean, going back to what, a year or so ago, that as we were really actively working on this, I mean, some master planning has been done, and we kind of backed out of it to say, to really have a viable tournament where you get maximum kind of bang for the buck, you need to be able to host about 100 team tournaments. And that comes up to anywhere from 11 to 13 fields on softball, and same thing for soccer. So we looked at adding that capacity up at Winged Deer, and then adding that capacity, either you would expand to Lions Field and add a few more down there, or go look for another whole parcel, and that's when the Buffalo Valley conversation came and all that. We did, at that time, kind of had a planned rollout, and that was, we set aside, was it $300,000 to do repairs at Civitan because we have problems there. So it's to do maintenance there, to get that up to speed so that we had greater capacity, those fields could stay open longer. So that was kind of phase one. And then we got to the point where we started going through budget, and, there was no additional funding to look at the kind of the scope of the plan that Mr. Ellis brought forward to us, with renderings and all the kind of stuff that we were looking at. And that the debt roll-off in 2019 would probably be the first availability that we would have to invest in any kind of sports complex. Then the county thing came up, so it was like, well, maybe we kind of take a deep breath and go look at that to see if there's some economies of scale that could be done at that particular point in time. So I would say resurrect that master plan that Mr. Ellis did, because it's there. Let's get back on line with that, and then if the concept is right, if it's going to require new land or purchase land versus land that the city already owns that we might be able to do that with, then let's get down and kind of put a stake in the ground as a commission, and then see where we go from there. Or if there's viability in the county plan. But I think we've got all the information, or a lot of it. It's going to change because some time has changed since that time.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, one of the other potential impacts, we still have got to get the conversion done. And I don't know where we stand with that. Perhaps you can.
Charlie
elaborate.
speaks with TDEC weekly, and they converse with National Park Service on a weekly basis, and we're waiting a final answer. We're told it should be really soon. I wish I could tell you.
It could be any second.
Congressman Rowe's office has been really good about following up with MPS as
Who was
well.
mayor when that was first requested?
I think that was PC Snap.
No, I mean, it's been a long time ago. Just for, I mean, this has been an ongoing process for years,
Yeah.
so.
Any minute now.
Raymond Huff.
Right. Okay.
Warren, who is,
No federal grants.
yeah, yes, the lesson is no federal grants, ever. Yeah. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Peterson?
Your next order of business is to make 4 appointments to the Johnson City Public Library Board. You have in your packet recommendations to reappoint Kathy Hall and to appoint Don Spurrell and David Gmar.
Kumar.
Gamer. I'm sorry.
Oh, well,
Thanks, Kathy.
thanks, Rob. Old David, we'll just call him David G. How about that? All right.
You just need a motion.
Well,
to-
and we have our
Commission
commission representative, and Dr. Van Brockland has requested to be. Do we need to bundle that or do it separately?
Can do it all together.
We bundle it.
I'd make a motion that the names as indicated here be appointed to the library board.
Second.
And what were those names again?
Kathy Hall, Don Spurrell, and now I can't find the name that people apparently mispronounced, and Dr. Van Brockland.
Very good.
But thank you for calling me out.
Sure. Okay, any discussion? Did we have a second?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Jennings, call the roll.
You didn't make him read the names back to you.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brockland.
Yes.
Commissioner Wise.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Mayor Temita.
Yes. And I believe we have a new library director.
Yes, you do.
Would you like to come up and introduce yourself and plug your library for the millions of people watching?
She's gotten involved. She's in Morning Rotary with me.
That's
Yes,
good.
I am.
We
Well,
won't
good
hold that
evening.
against you. Us noon Rotarians will not hold that against you. Much.
My name is Robin Westfall. I have been your library director since June the 19th. Sometimes I feel like I've been here a week, and sometimes I feel like I've been here 5 years. I can't say if that's a good thing or a bad thing. First of all, I want to thank you all for your support of the Johnson City Public Library. And I wanted to let you know that as of last Friday, a project that you helped fund, our automated materials handler, which is part of our RFID project, went online as of last Friday. So we'll be having an open house for that, and I will invite all of you to come see this wonderful piece of machinery that makes our life much easier and is going to be cost savings as well as more efficient for the library. So wonderful things are always happening at the library, and we're working on a new strategic plan and some things that we would like to do for the future. Thank you for your appointment of these 4 members to the library board. And I'll be presenting our annual report here coming up in the next couple sessions that you have. So, thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Your next order of business is to make 4 appointments to the Public Art Committee. You have a list in your packet of people who expressed interest, and discussion. The appointments are yours to make. These are all three-year terms.
Again, this is one of those where there's an abundance of opportunity here. There are 9 names and 4 spots, and lots of compelling reasons for any of these folks. I would suggest Elvis Key, who has already served in be one of the 4 appointments. And then I've heard from several others, as I'm sure you all have, but I would like to see Elvis Key and Michelle Treese amongst the 4.
As a starting point, I'll second that motion.
Okay, well, we want to vote on our 2? We want,
I think we ought to, do we?
If you're not prepared to indicate who your other 2 are, let's.
Well, I just
let's-
wanted to give others an opportunity to chime in. I don't
well,
want to take all the fun.
I'll make may I amend your motion to include Elvis Key, Michelle Treese, and the only, Michelle contacted me, but the only other applicant who contacted me was Chastity Hathorn, so I would
Second that too, because
Me as well.
there's 3. We want to go for 4?
Christine Murdoch, we have Michelle Treese, Christine Murdoch, Elvis Key, and Chastity Hawthorne. 4? And we have 4 appointments?
Mm-hmm.
I would be happy to amend my motion to reflect those 4 names, Hawthorne, Key, Murdoch, and Treese. Is that what I heard?
You can amend the second.
Since I made the motion, I can't amend the second. Who made the second?
Ralph did.
Ralph? Oh,
I
okay.
did, I'm gonna let somebody else second.
I'll second
3 of
that.
your 4 choices I agree with. I probably would not vote for the 4th, but that's okay.
And it's veiled in mystery, which it is.
That's exactly
I
right.
second.
Thank you.
Except you know 2 were dead. because I
So we could
seconded
sit
that.
here and we could just reverse engineer our way into it, but okay.
Very good. Any discussion or amendment?
No, I don't think you could go wrong with any of the applicants, and certainly 2 of them whom I know real well. I'm tickled to death to see them on this commission.
Yeah. And let me just say again, thank you so much for the number of applicants that we had. Thank you for your interest, and don't take not being appointed as a reason not to continue to apply for this or for other areas. But, you know, it's on my 4th year on the commission, and I think I've said it just about every time we vote on it. Guys, sometimes we don't know who you are. And to pick up the phone or to send an email is really helpful in helping us make that decision. There are 5 of these people here. I would, and I've lived here a long time, and I know quite a few people, but 5 of them I wouldn't know if they were standing on my foot. So pick up the phone. We're very accessible. Or send an email or do something. Make some contact with us, or not. But I think you'll see a preference to those who do choose to take a few minutes and just get to introduce yourself to us. That's all. So I'll quit preaching. Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda.
All right, we'll go right to left tonight. Commissioner Wise, anything you'd like to pull?
Today,
No, but thank you.
Mayor Brown?
I'm good, thank you.
none for me either.
Mark this night, please. Do I have a motion to accept this consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4649-17.
It's in there somewhere.
An ordinance authorizing the conveyance of a portion of the right-of-way along Mount Castle Drive located within the corporate limits of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, to Gregory A. Isbell and Jacqueline Isbell upon the terms and conditions set forth herein, ready for your consideration on second reading.
Move approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. We do not need public hearing, correct?
No, sir.
All right. Any discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4648-17, an ordinance to amend a portion of Hamilton Place upon the terms and conditions contained herein and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, ready for your consideration on third and final reading.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes.
Next order of business is consider a request from the Hands-On Regional Museum to purchase their building at 315 East Main Street. As you are aware, the museum occupies what was formerly the Woolworths building. The city of Johnson City owns the buildings on either side of that particular property. The agreement requested is for the purchase of that property for the sum of $500,000 to be paid in 10 equal payments of $50,000 each at 0% interest, with the first payment due on the date of closing. Since the museum will still be in the building once with the transaction is closed, there's also, with this, a lease agreement with the museum for them to remain there for zero rent. There is a 30-day notice to the lessor by the lessee should they want to terminate that lease. And we currently have in there that the lessor is required to give the museum at least a 90-day notice upon the termination of the agreement. The representatives, multiple representatives of the museum are here.
My name is Andy Marquardt. I'm Executive Director of the Hands-On Regional Museum. With us tonight is our Board Chair, Dr. Robbie Anderson, as well as our Exhibits and Education Committee Chair, Scott Jenkinson, past Chair, Steve Schy. Also with us is Dr. Blaine Schubert. He is the Director of the Center for Excellence in Paleontology for East Tennessee State University. And we just thank you for this consideration of this proposal. We feel like it's a win for everybody involved. Getting the opportunity to anchor the development of that part of Main Street, I think, and commercialize those buildings for commercial or retail development, and then giving us a major boost towards our first phase is critical timing for us and everyone involved. Our museum has been a staple for 30 years, and this really helps us to continue to be a staple for the next 30 years. So I'll take any questions if there are any. Otherwise, just thank you very much.
Any questions?
For consideration.
We've had ample discussion and presentations. You bring us a PowerPoint tonight?
I did not, sir. Sorry.
We would like one. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Mark? Any comments, discussion?
Move approval.
Okay.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes. Good luck.
Good luck. We're excited. We hate to lose hands-on from downtown, but the affiliation with the Gray Fossil site, I think, is just a great marriage.
Andy
So
will
we
probably
look forward to it.
remind you that they're still looking for a smaller space in the
I
downtown
know
area
that.
that would allow them to be.
And I have just the partner they can partner with here, so it's
Fantastic.
exciting what's going to be
Absolutely. This
happening.
is great for the community and our region as a whole.
This is
Thank you
real
very much.
investment in our youth, continued investment. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you. You can't leave.
You have to stay through the
You have to
rest.
stay to the end, or we nullify it.
Yeah. We rescind.
Ms.
Move we
Peterson?
rescind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second, yeah.
Your next consideration is the purchase of the First Church of Christ Scientist property. This is the property consisting of 1.63 acres that sits adjacent to the Topper Palace and the big parking lot there on Liberty Bell Boulevard.
Range.
Next to the range, thank you, yes.
All those signs help people.
The sales agreement calls for a purchase price of $262,500. The funding source for this would be your fund balance that is unobligated at this point. This would put into the city's ownership the entirety of the property that we recognize as the Liberty Bell / Science Hill campus. This was the only property that wasn't city-owned. It is zoned multifamily, and we would recommend your approval of the purchase.
Move approval.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I think this is an important piece of property for the city to own. It's visually smack dab in the middle of the Science Hill Liberty Bell campus. There are a lot of things that could happen there that are different than the educational purpose of the campus, and I think it's an important investment in preserving the integrity of that larger property, and so I think it's a good opportunity, and I'm glad we have an opportunity to seize it.
Well said.
Our schools
Agreed.
have assured us they have a need and can put that to good use. And just important to point out, none of the pieces of property we are purchasing tonight are currently on the tax rolls. So we're not removing them from a revenue-generating position. And hopefully, hands-on, when they do move, we can develop that block into something that will generate some revenues for us. So I'm all for putting these back on when we can. Any other discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of a resolution and agreement regarding the intergovernmental financing of Aerospace Park. As everyone is probably aware, this is a great economic development opportunity for the region. Johnson City, Bristol, Kingsport, Washington County, and Sullivan County are all going to be participants in this if all those bodies do approve these agreements. Sullivan County passed it earlier this week. It is before you now. Kingsport and Bristol consider it early in October, and Washington County starts the committee process, and it will be on their commission agenda at their fourth Monday in October meeting, if it gets through the committees, which hopefully it will. This is approximately an $18 million project. What is contemplated at this point is that the 5 entities I just named would jointly guarantee the airport authority issuing $8,500,000 in bonds. The airport authority will be applying for a matching dollar-for-dollar grant from the state of Tennessee. The grant has not been released for applications to be received yet. We hopeful that will happen in early November. The city's commitment in this agreement is 22.5% of the $8.5 million, or an amount not to exceed $1,912,500. The pro rata share for each entity was determined based on population. And the population of Sullivan County is about 55% of the total population. The population of Washington County is 45%. The city-county populations are very similar. So the city's share will be 22.5%. Washington County's share will be 22.5%. There's been a lot of folks put a lot of effort into this. I think that this project, without question, is on the scale of the hospital merger, the medical school, the pharmacy school. This is a real game changer with the potential to create a new industry in Northeast Tennessee that could potentially create perhaps 1,500 to 2,000 new jobs. These jobs will be aerospace related, and we have Northeast State immediately adjacent to the airport that has an aerospace program to train people, in aerospace and aeronautics work. So it could certainly be a shot in the arm to Northeast State and the education system, as well as creating job opportunities in the area. I would very strongly recommend your approval of this.
Any discussion, or do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I just want to make the comment for the public so that they understand this is a significant amount of monetary commitment. We've been looking at this project over the course of almost a year, so it's been very thoroughly looked at, very thoroughly considered, and it truly appears to be one of those projects that's worth an investment of a significant sum of money.
And I would say historical cooperation between, the Bristol, Kingsport, Johnson City, Sullivan County, Washington County, who historically don't always, we get along well enough, but we don't always see things in the same light, and we shouldn't. But this is something where I think it's been very clear that the citizens of every municipality and county that are participating in this will be a beneficiary of this. Get it going. And it looks like we're well on our way to getting the partners away. We just need to work on the state a little bit.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that this is an investment in our airport. And it's an airport that we own essentially in partnership with many of the other entities that were listed. We're looking at an investment where half of it is coming locally, divvied up, as Mr. Peterson indicated, and then the other half would be sought through a TDOT grant. We don't, from a regional standpoint, economic development opportunities in our region are limited very often by the absence of places for people to locate. We have too many beautiful mountains to make it a place to easily recruit highly lucrative industry. And so the ability to make this kind of investment in our airport adjacent to existing public infrastructure is significant, and I think is worth every bit of effort that has gone into this. And hopefully in 2 or 3 years it'll become very apparent how small bits of public commitment, relatively small, it's still a significant sum, can leverage exponentially greater private investment.
Yes, Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tumita?
Yes.
Next order of business is to consider approval of increased fair market values on the Knob Creek Road CSX Railroad Overpass project for tracks 23, 24, 25, 26, and 31. Mr. Pinzola has included a letter of explanation for the project. Commissioner Van Brocklin had asked the question Monday evening why the increased amounts still applied to 2 of the tracks who had agreed that they would sell without the increased amounts. Mr. Pinzola explained to me that in order to remain compliant with our federal funding, we have to go ahead and recognize the increase and allow them to formally decline the increased amount. We can't just offer them the base amount. And Phil's here if you've got any further questions of him.
So that means if we authorize it and they choose not to take it, it still doesn't play out. We just can't not authorize it.
Correct.
Okay.
Sort of.
Government.
Sort of, kind of, but not really.
Okay.
Well, I would assume that if we authorize it, they're going to go ahead and take it. They're not going to be magnanimous enough to forego the extra dollars.
That would be an interesting story for the local media to cover.
Well, as I understand it, we have at a minimum verbal commitment by those parties that they're not interested in the additional compensation. Do we have anything in writing, Phil?
There's an email in the packet.
There's an email in the packet.
There's an email in the packet.
Well, that would be nice if in fact they did not, since that's the lion's share of the overage. But to me, the issue still gets down to, I don't understand why we're in this position to begin with, and I'm not going to vote to approve it, so. I don't know what that ends up doing, but I just think it's unfair that the city would have to take care of the overage. It wasn't our fault. It was a contracted individual that did not meet the timing deadline.
we seem to have lots of folks who, contractors and builders and vendors, and that all have insurance for errors and omissions and warranties, and it seems like we generally get stuck paying the bill. So I'm with you on this
I
one.
think it's probably for the benefit of those who may be trying to follow what's going on. And I'm going to do my best here, and Mr. Penzola can correct me, but basically the gist of it is we engaged an appraisal firm who go out and determine the fair market value. State law says that once they establish that, there's a 60-day window where an offer has to be made to the landowner. And for whatever reason, more than 60 days lapsed, and it caused a consequential increase if all of the properties sell at the new number. And so the irritation that you're hearing from some to my left are, because Janet's being very nice, but is largely based on the fact that we're incurring this because somebody we paid to work on our behalf took longer than 60 days to do something that really probably could have been done in a letter, would have certainly seemed reasonable to be done in 21 or 28 days. It doesn't seem like a 60-day thing. Having said that, I am inclined to vote for this only because it's part of a bigger project, and I'm afraid if I don't vote for it, it may not pass. In fact, I think that's exactly what would happen. Having said that, though, I would like to make it real clear to staff and those who perhaps have the opportunity to engage other firms to do this kind of work for us, it's worth remembering who can't get their work done in 60 days the next time we have work like this that needs to be done. And I think that's a message those folks need to hear from Johnson City as well.
In Sharpie on the check.
In red Sharpie on the check.
Let's speak to that point.
Sure.
I'm Ryan Henley. I'm here representing Vaughn and Melton, the consulting firm that did the negotiations and did not make the offer in 60 days. We've provided phone records and our records of due diligence to Phil, and we also know that the increase in market value has reduced greatly, but as just out of good faith and to have a continued relationship with Johnson City, Vaughn and Melton would like to offer to reduce our professional fees to cover that increase. And I've also let Phil and Brandon know that we've implemented several different project controls that are going to mitigate this from happening, but mostly mitigate it from not being communicated clearly through that 60-day process. We know in this line of work that there are circumstances that you can't make the offer in 60 days, and we have provided that now, but we did not provide that beforehand. And I think that moving forward, we need to be more diligent about that. So we're going to keep a tab on that. And if we can't get a hold of a property owner in a reasonable amount of time and get an offer on the table, we're going to be letting everybody know.
Your offer is appreciated.
And yeah, I appreciate the good faith effort.
So maybe in
because-
pencil and not in Sharpie on the check.
Yeah, now it doesn't even need to be written on there, now that
Well,
we're
I
communicating.
think we've
Yeah.
We appreciate you
determined
Thank
it's
you.
communicated.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'd make a motion that we move on with this.
And a second.
Understanding the proviso.
Yes.
Very good. Any other discussion? Again, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
The message we received was something a little less cooperative, so thank you. Ms. Jennings, call the roll.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes.
And that brings you to the conclusion of your agenda for this evening.
Okay. Very good. Commissioner Fowler, anything? Like to share with our millions of
Again,
viewers?
tomorrow night, Science Hill plays at Daniel Boone in football, starting at 7, so go Toppers.
Commissioner Wise.
ETSU plays Mercer Saturday.
True.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
Commissioner Van Brocklin.
I do want to just share with the commission very briefly the results of the Facilities Committee meeting yesterday. Starting out, it was indicated what the monies in the bank are for the bond proceeds from the county at this point. which tally to slightly over $8.5 million. It was felt important by administration for the schools to indicate that that money is committed to the Liberty Bell Gymnasium and cafeteria. There was some question as to whether or not those monies were going to get subdivided into other things as well. Spent quite a bit of time talking about the two middle school concept, which has been reported in the paper as being utilizing the Liberty Bell campus and the Indian Trail campus for two middle schools. There will be somewhat disparate in size, with the capacity at Liberty Bell being about 2,000 students and at Indian Trail about 1,200. But the two schools, the way that it's broken down in an east-west concept, with Liberty Bell housing elementary students from Northside, Southside, Town Acres, and Cherokee, and Indian Trail housing Mountain View, Fairmont, and Lake Ridge, is said to have a very similar breakdown socioeconomically, racially, and the rigor of the elementary schools that are within each of those two divisions. So Dr. Barnett seems very comfortable with this suggestion that it is going to be one that will work well for the students as they move forward out of their elementary school education. There are some issues that the commission needs to be aware of, and I guess, all of you've seen how that's to be broken down in the paper, and that seems to be pretty definite on the school board's part. But in order to have parity of the two campuses, there are some things that have to occur. Science labs exist at Liberty Bell. They don't exist at Indian Trail. So some of the classrooms over there, I'm not sure of the number, but some of the classrooms over there are going to have to be converted. There is a cost associated with that. So this commission is going to hear about that at some point. We all know that when you take the functions of one school and turn it into two, there are certain types of classes that have to have educators for both. So there's going to be some additional operational cost for instructors. That's going to be kept to a minimum. That's both stated and I believe will actually be the case. But we're liable to see some requests for increased funding on the part of the schools operationally as this goes forward. The indication was that it's much more likely that that will occur in 2021 than in 2020, so it's a couple years down the road. The other thing, and the more significant thing, is at Indian Trail, they're going to have a field house. You can't combine the PE facilities with the athletic facilities. And even if you could, there's not enough room in the current PE facilities to accommodate both those things. Went through a little bit of figuring during the meeting. Tommy Burleson was there trying to get, just kind of a gut idea of what it's going to cost to do that. And you're probably looking at a 4,800 to 5,000 square foot field house at the cost of about $180 to $200 per square foot. So you're looking at $1 million that we're going to be hearing about as a commission, and we need to start thinking about that and preparing for that as this concept of two middle schools moves forward. In addition, Keith Turner was at the meeting, and we've had some discussion as a commission about this over the last couple of years, that the clock is ticking with the turf in particular over at Kermit-Tipton Stadium. He says we're going to be entering into our 8th year, which just doesn't seem possible.
That's what I asked. I was like, it can't be 8 years.
But the life of the turf is 10 years, and particularly with the play, with all the different groups we've had on it, that initially we wouldn't have envisioned. It is starting to show some wear, so realistically, we probably are going to be looking at that within the next couple of years. The latest bid that they've taken on that was $440,000. There is some interest on their part in having us participate in the scoreboard upgrades. I think there's going to come a point where, and I told them this at the meeting, there's going to come a point where the commission is going to have to prioritize where monies go, and maybe everything does not end up getting funded. In addition to the turf being replaced, we are also going to be looking at some resurfacing of the track. There were no estimates provided for that at this point.
Woodland wasn't included in this? Is that just an oversight on
That would have
Woodland?
been an oversight, yes.
Yeah. So it's going to one of the other places, probably Liberty Bell? Because
What
it'd
side
be
of-
west to Roan, it would. Liberty Bell.
Oh, Woodland
yeah.
is.
It's Woodland South, Jonesboro direction, so.
Commissioner, just
Yes.
as a point of clarification, I've always been told that the capacity of Liberty Bell is 13 to 1,400. I don't know where they're coming up with the 2,000 number.
It's the metric system. It's different.
Student yards.
It's not the
Student
imperial
meters,
student.
yes.
There's been indication to me over time that there was room to put more students there than what they currently have. I don't know what the population is right now. But that has been, initially, as I looked at it as well, when I was playing with the capacity numbers a few years ago, I thought that was going to be our next campus that we were going to run up against capacity. But in the meantime, I've been told that no, in fact, that's probably next to the formal high school campus, that's probably the least likely to come up against capacity.
Typical class size now is at that age group somewhere 630, 650. So there's 1,250 to 1,300 pupils in there now. So we've got, and I'm not doubting you or anybody else, it's just that's a number I've never heard put out there, that there's capacity at Liberty Bell for a whole nother grade of 600 and some children.
I can only tell you what it was
Oh, I
reported to me
understand. I
yesterday.
understand, yes, sir. I'll double check with Dr. Barnett.
Yeah, it doesn't pay to start making projection off of inaccurate numbers, so.
I did also yesterday communicate to them that if they can give me a timeline for when the monies are needed, that I can make that money work for them and try to maximize the investment earnings on that. So Dr. Barnett is working on getting that. There is an additional $3,500 that the county gave us for investment earnings for holding that money for 32 days. So it's not a lot, but you can add $3,500 to that.
Every little bit helps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's something that you want to grant approval at some point on the investment of that, or if you just want to allow us to put that with the folks that we typically put bond proceeds with and let them grow that for us.
Yeah, I wouldn't think we'd need separate approval given on that.
Do it with Raymond James then, once I get that scheduled.
Very good. Anything else? Just to note, our next commission meeting will be
October the
October
12th.
12th. And we will only have one in October. So if you have business with the city, make sure what is cut off for invoices would be
12/7's the 5th. We're going to need invoices. We'll get word out to everybody. We're going to need invoices in here by the 4th, 5th at the latest. So we'll make sure we get word out to everybody.
very good. All right. Happy September, and we'll see you in October.
Thank you.
Meeting's adjourned.